Hey,
Hey Tommy, how are ya?
who you phoning? What are you phoning JP for?
I didn't know where you were. I was getting nervous.
I was trying to get on your thing here. How are you?
I'm good. I feel good. I have to admit I'm a little sedated. I took an edible and I'm not used to edibles. And I took a 50. Are you there? Okay, I might have lost you.
Yeah, it says his device is not connected. Hold on.
Okay, there I am.
I can hear you. No, I was just gonna say I took an edible and I got sedated and I'm a little out of it. I have to admit that I'm a little out of it. Because I just went to the bathroom.
Yeah.
You know how when you like you take weed or you take an edible, you don't have to go pee for a while, but then when you go, it's like an elephant. Are you like that?
Yeah.
Are you high?
I used to be, not anymore though. No, not yet. No, I managed to stay pretty straight right now, but I will eventually.
So are you
Are you there?
Have you always been more disciplined? Are you more disciplined about marijuana now, than you were when you were younger, or do you just kind of go, "Oh, I have to do this and this and this, so I better just wait"?
Yeah, I usually wait because I get too tired if I smoke too soon. But it depends. If I'm doing cameos and they ask me to get high, then I'm obligated, contractually obligated to follow their lead. But so far, today no one's asked me to get high, and so I'm as straight as can be.
Yeah, I love those cameos. I like doing the cameos in the swimming pool. Just sitting in the swimming pool, and then I'll do things. Because it's like for me, it's like you might as well just enjoy yourself. And I hosted the Family Feud. You remember when I used to host the Family Feud? So a lot of times I just go, "Are you ready to play the feud?" And I'll do it in the swimming pool. I love it. So you were on the mask. You were on the mask. Go ahead.
Masked Singer.
You were a pineapple.
No, I was on the Masked Singer. Yeah.
Did you choose to be a pineapple?
I was. Yeah. Yeah, I did. I like the outfit. It had me with abs, and that's about the only picture I'll ever get of myself with abs. I did that.
But you started. The first thing you did was you were in a band. You were in a band. What was it? I wrote it down. You were in the band called. Let me get it.
Bobby Taylor.
You were into Bobby Taylor, but then you were in a group with four black guys, and you were going to name the band, which you can't say it now. You know what I'm saying?
Four N's and a C.
Yes.
Yeah, four N's and a C.
What was it like?
Yeah, I sure was.
What was that like? Did you enjoy that?
No. I mean, it was a gag, just a joke, and we put it on the marquee. And that night, we had no customers except one very, very angry black lady wrestler named Lottie the Body. And she sat and listened to us for a while, and then she goes, "Well, I see the ends, but where's the C?" And my dad, who happened to be a C, took offense, and he went to tell her, to watch her language, because my dad never knew that we put that on the sign. And so she just grabbed my dad and body slammed him to the floor. And so I was on stage, and I took off my guitar and I ran down there, and she grabbed me and body slammed my butt to the floor. And
Wow.
All the ends on the stage were laughing their A's off, and my brother finally came and rescued me, but we changed the name after that to Four Colored Guys and a Chinese Lad.
I love the lad part. Yeah. So music for you, I mean, what came first, music or comedy for you? What was in your head first?
Music. Well, music, but I was once, yeah, comedy's always, if you're a musician, unless you're in a West country band back then in the day, they were pretty serious. But all the black bands, when I got with the black bands, it was a joke fest from start to finish, and that's how I got it. And you do a lot of listening if you're not black. And so I listened a lot and I learned a lot. And then when I got into comedy, I was ready.
So tell me about getting into comedy. What was that? What was that transition? And when did you? Who were your influences, and what brought you to thinking you could do it, and then doing it?
Well, I got fired from Motown when I tried to get a green card. The road manager didn't know what a green card was, and he didn't care. He just knew that I missed the gig, and so he fired me. And even though Barry Gordy wanted to on-fire me, I told Barry, that I wanted to become a Barry Gordy and not work for one. And he said he gave me his blessings and some money. So I went to California with my now wife, and then I had to go up to Vancouver to work on the clubs because they needed my help. And so I went up there, but on the way, in my travels, I had seen the committee in Second City and, all the improv clubs that were playing at the time. And so I got influenced by them pretty much. And then when I got to Vancouver, I realized I could put an improv group in the strip club because it was perfect. We had the girls as actresses, and my first partner, Dave, he was the doorman. He was my partner, and that's how we got into comedy. And then when our straight guy left, we had an improv group, with one straight guy and two funny guys. And when our straight guy left, we found Cheech, and we hired Cheech. He was Richard at the time. And so when Richard joined up, and then we had a nice run in Vancouver, and then we were getting ready to disband, actually, and go back to the strip club. Cheech and I were the only ones that wanted to keep doing comedy. And so we put a band together first, but we never played a note. We went out and did 45 minutes of comedy, and that was it. It was in front of a live young audience, and they came and instead of they enjoyed it. They came to the front of the stage, sat down, and laughed at everything we did, which is why we never played any music, because they weren't expecting music. And so then that night, Cheech and I named her. We figured the name out, and that was that night was when we got together, and then we came to LA and hit all the freebie clubs, all the open mic nights, and got discovered, and here we are.
Wow, that's incredible. And that first show that you had with Cheech, how much of that was improvised? And how much of it was written out?
Well, we had worked it. Well, we would write down premises, that's about it. And that was, when we were in the improv club. And then when Cheech and I joined up, I used to write down just the set list of bits. But it was all improv. Well, we'd work them out. We'd work out the bits, backstage. And then we would, and then we started just not rehearsing, just working them out on stage. And then, but we did the improv way, we'd do one bit and then black out and then do another bit. And then sometimes a blackout, other times the guy would keep talking. And when Cheech and I went on the road, because we couldn't have the blackouts, except at the very end of the show, we devised a way to just stay on stage and do our comedy. It was like learn as you go kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
And it was a kind of a new genre that we did because we were the first comedians to really separate improv from theater and put it on a comedy stage, you know. Up until then, most acts, like you said, they would have their bits written out for them. Like one time I met Rowan and Martin. They were doing a game. That was when I was solo without Cheech. And we had Dick Martin and I had a nice little talk, and all their stuff was written out. All the gags were written out. Everything, all the sides, everything was written by writers, you know, for laughing. And but Cheech and I, we sort of like improvised our own act, and we were still doing it right up until this movie. Now we got a documentary coming out, and I wrote a bit, but it got rejected. So
what was the bit?
That, you know?
What was the bit that got rejected?
I wanted to have Cheech and I in a self-driving car, you know, and Cheech is nervous because I'm showing off and showing him how I don't have to put my hands on the wheel, and then the car takes off on its own, has a mind of its own, and then Cheech and I are struggling to survive after that. You know, and then of course the car comes to a halt, and we lived through another episode or another adventure.
The car stuff was always
got rejected by Cheech.
Well, listen, the car stuff was always
rejected by Cheech. Yeah.
Well, I mean, how much of that?
Yeah. Well.
I mean, because you guys, was that a hard thing? Because, you know, 50-50, did you argue all the time trying to figure out, especially through the movies? I mean, were you guys writing all the stuff in the movies, or were there guys you collaborated with that?
No. The truth was I wrote most of the stuff. I would write the premises, and then Cheech would add his take and dialogue, and you know, he was his mastery was taking a hit song and putting his own words to it, you know, like my scrotum, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I was the writer. I was the creator of Cheech and Chong, you know, because it was my topless, you know, my improv club that hired him. And then when we got fired, it was my. I put a band. Actually, we put a band together, and we never played a note because we did comedy. Which was my decision. And then when we came to LA, that again was my decision. And we called ourselves Cheech and Chong. Again, even though you know, it was 50-50, that was my decision. You know, I asked Cheech if he had a nickname because I didn't know he was Mexican until he told me. Until we got to LA, you know, because Cheech called himself Richard Marin up in Canada. And then when we got to LA, then we found out, or I found out, that he was Chicano. And then we started doing the lowrider bit. And that really was the bit that got us fame and fortune, you know. But it's over now.
Well, it's over, but it lives on. And when did the pot culture start? Was that from the very beginning of doing pot references and pot culture and including that? Because nobody was doing that when you were doing that.
Not in the improv club, because you know, it was a TNA mostly. No, it wasn't until we got to LA and we're working in a club in the Valley, and we'd had to do 2 shows at this one club on Van Nuys in Encino. And the first show, and it was for a dance club. They were dancing. Oh, wow. And the first show went over, but not that great, you know. Not, in fact, wasn't very good at all because they were dancers, you know. And so then Cheech and I came up with this Chicano character. Cheech came up with the character. I came up with the bit, and when he said, "Hey, Red Freak, you want to ride, man?" That was the line that sent us to where we are now. Because as soon as he said that line, everybody in the audience just gasped, and the laughs were so loud. It was crazy. And then I came out as a Red Freak, and then everything we did was just hilarious. And like you said, no one was doing that. Nobody, except Cheech and Chong. In fact, that's why we got our own little place in a dictionary. That's like a Cheech and Chong bit.
Yeah.
Everybody says that, and that's one of the reasons. There was two reasons why we struck a gold, and one was the fact that we had a Chicano playing a sympathetic character that everybody could relate to, and he was a real Chicano. It wasn't like Bill Dana playing, Speedy Gonzalez or whatever he used to be. This was a real Mexican playing a Chicano, and that made history, and it still does. We were the first, and me, I played everybody else. I was like, in the movie, I was a rich Jewish kid.
Yeah.
Anywhere else, I could be anybody. I could be anybody because I am anybody. I'm a mixture of a lot of things. And but the thing I was that that kind of airhead, kind of stoner. And I got that character from our light man in Vancouver, a guy named a kid named Strawberry, and he was that guy for a while. I saw him lately, and he had changed. When I saw him the last time I saw him, he was a distinguished businessman. He lost all his hippie characteristics, and he wasn't Strawberry anymore.
It was purple.
Yeah, that was his. Yeah, that was the secret of our success, is that we introduced the world to a sympathetic Latino Chicano lowrider.
Likeable.
Up until us, it was yeah.
You guys are likable, and the timing.
Laughable.
Did people say this is never going to work?
Yeah.
Did they say this is never going to work, or you guys are crazy? Or?
We were never evaluated by anybody, really. It made a difference because we were so unique that there was nothing negative. The only negative wasn't negative, but it was a negative attitude. I got Cheech disputes this, but I was there, so I know it happened. When we did our showcase at the Troubadour, it was actually for Warner Brothers and Ted Templeman, but Lou Adler snuck in the back door and watched us. And he was the one that put out the word, to come and see him because he wanted to talk to us. Well, that night, Frank Zappa and Herb Cohen were in the audience. They had heard it. It was like a big deal, come and see these guys. And after the show, Cheech and I were walking toward a car, and Herb and Frank Zappa were ahead of us. And so we called out to Herb. We knew Herb. Herb almost was our manager. And Herb and Frank stopped. And Frank really never said a word. He never said, "Hey, great show," or anything. And I kind of took it as to being kind of like Frank, because Frank was so anti-pot. And when he saw Cheech and Chong, we were all about drugs.
Yeah.
So I could see why Frank wasn't thrilled. But then Cheech writes in his book that Frank loved us and he was a big fan. And I guess Cheech got to know Frank. At least he got to know Frank's wife. But I have no way of knowing because Frank never said a word. He never said hi. He never said goodbye. He just
sometimes they do that. And they don't want to let on They don't want to let on that they really dig you, and then later you'll find out you can become best friends with them, right? I mean, that's how I was with Mort Saul. Mort Saul, I always admired Mort Saul, and then it's like years later, we're in Cantors, and he comes up and we became best friends after that. So how do you find comedy now? Do you find yourself writing every day, or ideas come to your head, or is it still percolate?
Well, that one idea came, because I was driving from Montebello, was it somewhere, from a golf tournament, and I just realized, there was a good joke with the automatic driver. And I got really excited, and I phoned everybody. And unfortunately, I was the only one that was excited about the bit. And so it caused a lot of grief and a lot of anguish. And it's just been cleared up just lately, And I still to this day, I can't help when something comes up. But, I've been on my own with my wife for many years, and so anything I write I can use with my family, because my son Parrish, he also appears on stage with me as a bass player. He's one of my band. But what I plan to do now is to do poetry, because I realize, I'm a lyricist, and lyricists are really poets, and I'm not that I'm not that stuck into the music part of anything. I can play guitar. I'm not a guitar player, and so I realized, and I was just practicing it with Amazon Music. They had that sort of like electronic music. So I put the music on. I put the thing on, and I start reading my poems, and it's going to work really well. That's going to be my next evolution.
It is lyrical, right? The rhythm. Yeah. Do you find that the rhythm of poetry is also similar to comedy, because you have to have a certain setup, a certain punchline, and then there's a certain texture to it. So that's a wonderful exercise. Yeah. Hey, do you still get the munchies?
The little girl that. Oh yeah. Are you kidding? I'm constantly I'm constantly in the refrigerator, man. I got frostbite from standing there looking at it. I had to take myself off sugar, because I do have a sugar problem. But the trouble is, I'm at that age, where you get sugar diabetes in a heartbeat, So I'm off sugar. But yeah, I get the munchies. But I you know what I am? I'm a toast freak. I love toast.
With butter?
Love toast all my life.
With butter?
With butter. Well, not real butter. I do margarine, or fake butter. But yeah. With butter, with
sourdough.
When I was a kid, that was our treat.
Sourdough?
Yeah, I love sourdough, olive bread, anything but toast. And when I was in prison, we were doing a sweat lodge, and the sweat lodge, you could have a little campfire where they cooked the tea, and you could have a little campfire. Well, when you have a fire and you got bread, guess what? You got toast. And so every Saturday I would toast myself up a little treat.
You like peanut butter?
Kid, that was our dessert. That was our treat. Everything. What's that?
You like peanut butter?
Peanut butter?
On the toast?
I love peanut butter, but yeah. Oh yeah. Yes. But I'm trying to, lose some of this.
Lose some of it, yeah.
Pandemic weight. And right now it's toast and margarine. Yeah.
I've been cutting back on sugar, but I still have fruit sugar. Yeah. And the thing I just It just is the best thing. You should try it. It's the best thing. Blueberries with oat milk. Blueberries with oat milk.
With what?
Oat milk.
Oat.
Oat milk.
Oat. Yeah, I've done it. Yeah.
Have you done it with blueberries?
Yeah. Yeah. I've been using oat milk. Yes.
I love it.
I do blueberries and oatmeal. You know.
Okay.
So I have oatmeal, and when I cook my oatmeal, and I was using that oat milk too. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's my breakfast. Oatmeal and blueberries, because my wife always, and I grow blueberries on my roof too, and so I love blueberries. They're so good for you, dude.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Is there such a thing as a pot suppository, or was I just dreaming? I thought I heard about.
No, there is.
There is?
There is. I can't use them anymore. I had my rear entrance sewn up now, so I can't use them. But yeah, when I had prostate cancer, I was using the suppositories. In fact, I got some in my refrigerator, but I can't use them unless I swallow them. And for some reason, I don't have the urge to put a suppository in the wrong end. You know?
No, maybe with oat milk. Maybe with oat milk.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, I'm just freestyling.
Because I got so much pot here now. I got so much pot here now. I'm back to grinding and rolling joints, if you can believe that. Because I got away from joints for so long because, I got into a pipe. And actually, I got into, where is my pipe? There's an Israeli pipe that I use once in a while. Oh, here it is. Here it is. This was made by an Israeli scientist.
It's the slide one.
It's magnetic.
Oh, it's magnetic.
Yeah. Have you got it? Have you got that one?
No, I got one that slides.
You know one?
But it's not Israeli.
Yeah, it slides. It opens, and this. I mean. It comes apart when you do it right. Come on. Oh, I can't do it. But anyway, it's got a little nipples in there where the smoke comes through there and it cools there. It cools the smoke. But I learned that if we, the old cigarette holder that the grand dames used to smoke out of. Anyway, I make these here. Bamboo cigarette joint holders, and they're long.
Oh wow!
And so when you light them, by the time the smoke gets to you, it's cooled out, and you don't really cough as much. But the other day I was on doing a cameo or doing a thing, and I was trying to explain a Zoom, and I was trying to explain how if you smoke, you don't cough. And sure enough, as soon as I took a hit, I started coughing.
Tell me about your line of cannabis. What is it about your line of cannabis that makes it the Tommy Chong line of cannabis?
Well, here it is. Here, we've teamed up with the best growers we can find, and actually they find us. And the people that put it all together, that's the only thing they really have to do is because we charge a little bit more than most places, but our reputation is stellar. We've got the best weed available. And in both, indica, sativa, and we got a lot of different strains, hybrid. We got hybrid, and but the thing is, it was cannabis was always like a mom and pop thing for me growing up. It wasn't until I came down to LA that. Although the first joint I ever smoked was from LA, it was that stinky Mexican weed, and but ours is, it's most of it is indoor, and hydroponic and pure, just as pure as you're going to get. That is what makes our weed very, very special. And then, but because we're trying to get a dispensary off the ground, we're selling pre-rolls. The pre-rolls come in these tubes here.
I love pre-rolls.
And they're yeah. And ours, we got pre-rolls with a little hash added to give you that British kick-ass flavor. And then we got all the strains, the sativa. I mean, the two, sativa, indica, and no, our reputation is stellar. It's the best, I think, in the business, because there was a time when we first started many years ago that they were, the sellers were trying to substitute the dirt weed with the good weed, and we weeded them out as soon as we found them. And and right now, because you got such a wide choice in all the dispensaries, that you don't need to stoop to that level, of it's almost like what do you call it, bootleg or black market level, where you could. I remember when I was a musician in Vancouver, we had a guy come backstage with little pinners, and he sold them for $1 a piece, and it really was cigarette paper and marijuana dust, but it got you where you wanted to go. We'd pass it around the band, one little pinner, and we'd go in and kick ass playing because it was just enough.
Just enough to get on stage.
Because with marijuana, it affects the brain, and so your thought, like a placebo. If you're just thinking about pot, you'll get a high, because that's the way the brain works. It's like like a placebo. Like I said, if you think you're being healed, you will be healed. Your body will respond to suggestions, and that's why it's very important that you keep your mind either elevated or clear, so that your inspirations can be very pure. And that's what pot. That's why pot was so good for us, because it would, especially the little pinners, that it enabled us to perform without having any problems. And I've had guys in the band, especially I had a drummer one time that was hooked on whatever he could find in a drugstore, but mainly heroin. And it was like, he was from Seattle too, just like Jimi Hendrix. In fact, they're from the same tribe almost, And Don Mallory was his name, but he passed, and he was a hell of a good drummer. But when he got on heroin, man, he fell off his kit one time, and I used that scene in Up in Smoke, where my kit fell apart. And that's from Don Mallory, and I always thought that was funny that I call myself a drummer, yet I'm hooked on all the whatever drugs you can find, and which makes you not a good drummer.
Too much.
Real good drummers.
You don't want to go too much.
They couldn't.
But what was it like? No. Do you remember the first time you got high? How did you get the weed? And then what was it like? How old were you? You remember?
I was 17. And in fact, I just talked about this with this kid from this guy, a writer from Calgary. Apparently, they got a little mini museum, a Tommy Chong museum, because Calgary's claim to fame in the cannabis world was that's where I started smoking weed, and they even found the alley that I smoked it in, and the building is gone. It was a jazz club called Foged Manor. And it was downstairs, and I was there one night, and Ray Ma, this bass player, and when I found out he was the president of Foggy Manor, he gave me a Lenny Bruce record and a joint. I was 17 years old at the time, I was in school. That joint really changed my life. I didn't smoke it that night. We smoked one of his. Raymond took me outside and we lit up one of his joints. And it was the first time I'd ever smoked pot. And I went back down and listened to Ornette Coleman, a tune called "A Lonely Woman," and I was in tears. Really, I visualized so much of that song. I could see a woman sitting in her window, in a second story room, and it was weird. It was so crazy. It affected me so much because I was apprehensive. I wasn't eager. I hadn't really heard about it, It wasn't on my radar at all. And so when he gave it to me, it was like, well, okay, I'll try it. And then that joint that he gave me lasted me a whole month. And during that time, I quit school. I decided I was going to become a blues musician. And it changed my life. And that was it. That was it.
Did your parents find out about this? Did your parents, what was your parents' reaction?
Well, my dad, being Chinese, and he was a truck driver, and he was a gambler, and he was really where I got the wild spirit from. He was a true free spirit. He was a real hippie. He didn't know it. He had no idea. But when we grew up, we had a off the grid totally house, totally off the grid, off the sewer, off the electricity, and I mean that's how I grew up. I grew up like a hippie, and we had chickens, and we had but my mom had been in the hospital early part of my life with TB, so she was quarantined for like 5 years. And so my mom was, and then we found out that my mom was a quarter native. And so she was so sweet, not the least bit authoritarian at all. She was more like a poet. She really was, because she was a healer, and she was very sweet, very beautiful and kind. I'd come home late at night and she'd get up, make some tea, and come out and have a visit and listen to me. She was a great listener, and she was a great storyteller too. The whole family was. My dad never hardly spoke a word. My dad would go to work and never say goodbye, and he'd come home from work. He'd be gone for a couple of days, come home and never say hello. It was like a Chinese way of coping with being gone. If you don't say goodbye, then you're not really gone. And if you don't say hello, then you weren't really gone anywhere else. That's what I figured out anyway. But no, my parents were very supportive. And then when I started making it big, oh my God, then all my fans come out of the woodwork, my uncle, who I was named after, Tommy Chong, he was Tommy Chong in Edmonton, but he was the opposite of my dad. He was a gymnast. He taught diving. He stayed in the University of Edmonton all his life, in the University of Alberta. He started going there, and then he started teaching there, and he died. When he died, he was still connected to the university. But when I was 16, I wanted to meet him because my mother, like I said, she was a great storyteller. And so she would tell me stories about Uncle Tommy, and how he never had a girlfriend, and he was a gymnast, and he had one girl, but they never got married. It was so sad. Of course, I found out, they never said it, but my suspicion was that he was gay, but anyway, when I started making waves, in the entertainment business, especially the movies, when I started getting reviewed movies, Tommy Chong, my uncle reconnected with us. First with my dad, and then with me, and he came and stayed at our house in Vancouver. I got to the point where, I could buy a house in Vancouver on the beach, one of the nicest. And I took the family right up to levels that they never even knew people at that level. And so my uncle, we we connected at the end, and we got very tight. You know, I'd listen to him. He'd show me. You talk about in shape. 80, I think it was 81 at the time. He was visiting us, and he was down. We had him downstairs in the little suite downstairs, and I'm talking to him, and he grabs the bottom of the chair and the back of the chair, and while he's sitting, he does a handstand. He curls up, and boom, he does feet straight up in the air. Then he comes right back down. That's how
he still had it.
That's how limber he was at 81.
At 80 years old.
81. Oh my God, he was skinny. Well, he was buffed. And Tommy Chong, and I finally made his. No, my parents were very, very special. My mother only had a grade 3 education. But and when she wrote, I still got her letters. I kept them. They're gold to me. She wrote in this, very childish handwriting thing, and her style. But so much love and so much. Well, she was Native. She was, and you could tell. I mean, she taught me. As soon as we were separated, for 5 years, and then when we got back together, she disciplined me. She was the only one that ever spanked me. My dad never. And one time I missed school. It wasn't my fault, but I wasn't telling anybody. I was walking to school, and we lived in the country. In this, our neighbor rode up on his horse. And he says, "Come on, I'll give you a ride." And so I got on his horse. And next thing you know, we're not heading for school. We're going on an adventure. And so, of course, hey, I'm all for the adventure. And of course, what we did, we rode over to another ranch, and we saw the bull, and we just hung around. And by the end of the school day, then he dropped me off near my house, and I got off the horse and I went home. And no one said anything. I didn't say anything. I wasn't a big talker anyway. And was it that night? Yeah. No, that was Friday. Saturday, the next day, it was bath time, because like I said, we lived in a house where there was no running water. So we only had a bath once a week. So Saturday was bath time. We had to bring the water from the well, from the thing. And so I had my bath, and next thing you know, my mom says, "Okay, just stand there." I went, "What?" And next thing you know, she whacked me with a belt, a razor strap. Whack, whack, whack. Don't you ever miss school again, And that was the only time I got disciplined by either parent.
Do you think it's the way
to this day? I mean, I was.
Is it the way they raised you, that you didn't act out, that you didn't act, seek, being a bad kid or whatnot, was just because of the good nature of your parents and just trusting you to be a proper guy? Like, they gave you a lot of
so much love. But she was raised in a big family, and her mother committed suicide when she was 3 years old, and she eventually her childhood was spent in an English home as a domestic, and she was a domestic worker most of her early life. I found this out after she died. With I kind of knew about it a little bit. They were. Back in the day, there were things they never talked about. They never talked about her Indian heritage at all. It wasn't until my daughter found out with DNA that she was a quarter, my grandmother was half. And we just found that out. And they were from Mafican, Manitoba. And so I texted her something. Anyway, I got contacted from Mafican. No, my parents... like I said, my dad was Chinese, but he was like a real hippie back in the day, And when I started playing guitar, for a fiddle player for dancing for parties, I was 9, 10 years old when I started playing guitar for dances. Then I was elevated to, Tommy's very special, and I never got disciplined again. That was the only time I ever got disciplined. Oh no, it was the way they raised kids back then. Smacking kids you could do it in public. It was allowed in schools. They got the strap. Although I got the strap one time in the home when I was taken from the hospital and put in the home, and that was before I got whacked on the butt. That was my first time I got whacked on the hands, because my first night in the Salvation Army home, there's a row of kids, each had their single bed, and each had a locker beside the bed. And so when I went there, the kids were jumping off the locker onto the bed. I didn't know that it was a trick that they played on the new kid every time the new kid come in. So they told me, "Hey, try it." So I'm up on the locker, and the trustee walks in. She walks in and catches me, and then takes me right downstairs. And I just came from the hospital where their nurses were bathing the hell out of me. And next thing I know, they marched me down to the office, and she said, "Hold out your hand." I was confused, so I held up my hand. She whacked with a ruler or something. Oh, God. And then
why do you think you were set up? Why did they set up kids like that? Is it just sort of like a initiation?
All the kids, an initiation. That's what it was. It was a young kid. He doesn't know anything. Hey, let's play that trick on him. And actually, it was a welcoming to the home. You're not at your own home now. You're in an orphanage, and the kids, kind of ruled. They ruled everything. But I learned my lesson. It was the first time I cried that I can remember crying.
Yeah,
because I was walking upstairs after, and I never cried when I got hit. But then I fell and put my hand down, and I could feel the grit on the hand, and it stung. And I started sobbing a little bit. And then I went back to bed, and I never jumped off that locker again, I'll tell you that.
Hey, this is just a side question. I've always been curious. Your beard, you've had a beard for a long time. When's the last time you shaved your beard? And how do you feel about having a beard, and comfort-wise? What is it to you?
First of all, I couldn't grow a beard until I was pretty much in my 30s, almost 40. I was, because I'm half Chinese, I had this sort of crop failure here. But I've always had a weak chin. I had a Chinese chin, like everything else. In fact, I had an implant put in to give me a chin. But the last time I shaved off my beard, it was for some kind of operation. I forget what the operation was. But I shaved it off, and my family would not look at me. My wife, my kids, they would not look at me. Grow it back.
Isn't that weird how it just becomes... I had a tiny little mustache for a summer, just a tiny little mustache, and it felt good for me. It felt really good, but I couldn't keep it going. I couldn't keep it going. But I couldn't keep it going. It was paper thin.
Little crop failure.
Well, it was also the upkeep. I mean, I think with having a beard, that's one thing. You just kind of let it go. But a paper thin little mustache, you kind of have to stay on it. You got to stay. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, the good thing about for my beard, because I got big eyes, that sort of lessens. If you notice people with beards, like Omar Sharif and people like that, they got those big intensive eyes, and that's what I had, but the beard sort of like evened it out, Yeah. At least that's what I think anyway. But I can't go without a beard now.
Well, it's great. It looks great.
About getting gold. I grew I grew
Go
it
ahead.
really long during the pandemic, and I grew my hair long, but it got too long. When you grow your hair too long, it becomes short because you keep it in a ponytail, and so you might as well have short hair. So,
Right.
so I went into as soon as they lifted the restrictions, I went in to my barber. I got a Chicano barber, and he took care of me. And he cut it too short, but everybody liked it. Now, I'm at that age now. No matter what I do, they oh, you look good.
Yeah. But you do look good, and the white is nice. The white is nice.
Yeah.
I think my ride is here.
I'm enjoying my. Yeah, I'm enjoying my age now. I'm really enjoying myself now. I had to come to grips with it. It was about over a year ago, before the pandemic. I had to come to grips with it, because when you start losing it, like when you start losing your, not so much your youth, your middle age. When you go from middle age into elder or statesman, that is kind of it's kind of tough. It's kind of tough. But then now that I'm here, I like it. I like what I am. I like where I'm at now. I like the perks that it gives you. It gives you a lot of perks. And I tell people when I do cameos and that, I tell them, take advantage, of whatever age you're at. Enjoy whatever age you're at, because that's you're the only thing you're going to change is your mind. That's all.
Yeah.
You're not going to change how you look. You're just going to change. You're just going to change how you feel about how you look.
Yeah,
That's
perspective, attitude, right? It's about having the right attitude.
Yep.
And Tommy, it's
always.
It's been such a pleasure having you on the show, and you've given us so many decades of comedy and goodwill, and you're just a wonderful guy, and it's just a pleasure to be able to talk to you. And I hope we can do it again. Do you have any social media you want to plug?
Anytime, man.
You have anything you want to plug as we go out?
Well, I figured I found out I was plugging the wrong thing. It's called get Tommy Chong CBD.com.
CBD.
That's what, if you want my CBD, it's called.
Yeah.
Get Tommy Chong's CBD.com.
Yeah, the CBD says we don't have to wear.
Everybody.
I was just going to say the CBD says we don't have to wear masks anymore. That's my pod joke.
Guys, yeah.
The CBD says we don't have to wear masks anymore. It's a joke.
I got it, dude. It's hard to get high with a mask on anyway.
Yeah, this edibles it just feels so good. I love edibles. And maybe I could try one of yours one day.
Enjoy oh yeah, you love them, man. You love. You know what I got? Where's my strip? Oh, I don't see it here. I got these breast strips that are. Oh, here it is. This is my own private one, but they're like those breast strips that you get. The little squares, and you put them on your tongue and under your tongue. These are so many people's favorites because it's not smelly, and you just put them on your tongue, and then within minutes you got a nice THC high.
Wonderful.
So wonderful. You can find these. These again are available on GetTommyChongCBD.com. There
Wonderful.
You go.
Wonderful, Tommy. You're just a pleasure. Thank you so much, and I wish you all the best, health and happiness to you and your family.
Friend.
Tommy Chong for the hour. I'm Louie Anderson.
Same to you.
Thank you. I'm Louie Anderson. This is the Jeff Richards Show. You can catch more of the Jeff Richards Show at thejeffrichardshow.com. And now a song from Meanest Man Contest.